What's going on, friends and family? Thank you guys so much for watching or listening to Every Day's a Saturday with your host, me, myself, and I, Brian Roof. Hey guys, another great day, another great interview. That's right. But before we get started, I would like to thank each and every one of you guys for tuning in, watching, wherever you may be doing. I hope you guys are having an amazing week out there. Remember how I always say, don't let it kick your ass. Make sure you're out there kicking its ass. I hope you guys are all having an amazing time. And just please keep sharing out the podcast. You guys, we're doing great out there. We're holding the number 3 spot as best veteran podcast on FeedSpot. So that's exciting. Let's try to get that number 1 spot though, huh? All right. Well, I'm not going to keep my next guest waiting any longer. And I'm excited to introduce my next guest. My next guest served his country proud in the United States Army as an Airborne Ranger. He has transformed his career from combat arms to passions of helping others. He has worked in healthcare while creating personal opportunities of long-term financial freedom. He has studied and acquired certifications in various IPO trading and real estate. Today, he's an executive healthcare consultant, published author, speaker, world traveler, avid golfer, and a mental health advisor. Let's meet our next guest, Dr. Aaron Bryant. What's going on?
Hey, buddy. Hey, I meant to tell you, you got the coolest name. I love that, Brian Roof. I mean, that just flows off the tongue.
Man, thanks, man. It didn't really help me out in the Marine Corps very much with having that last name and them barking at me all the time. And but
Understood.
and I definitely got a little bit of some slack in high school, you know, barked at or raise the roof. The roof is on fire. Just there were some good ones, but yeah, trust me, last name with that one, you definitely get a little razz here and there. But hey,
Hey,
man.
sound like an action star to me, but okay.
Hey, I'll take it. Hey, shoot, man. I'll wear that with some proud. But hey, let's go ahead and get to know all about Dr. Aaron P. Bryant. Man, you got a lot going on, and it seems like you just want to keep educating yourself in life, which I could appreciate that. I think there's never a time that we cannot learn. I mean, we can learn in our entire life. I don't think you can learn it all in a lifetime. So, but you're definitely taking the time. So let's get to know all about you. What made you join the Army and you weren't ready to be a Marine yet, and that's understandable. It's okay. I mean,
Well, actually, there is a story. I did see that really cool commercial where they're in their white uniform, dress uniform, with a sword, and I was like, "Oh, that's cool." And
slaying the
actually,
dragon, the one that's
that's what you call it, but it was a cool uniform. But no, I did end up chickening out and going a different direction.
Well, yeah. So tell us all about it. Tell us where you grew up and why you chose the Army, and then what you got going on today, and why you keep on educating yourself.
Yeah, so I'm from Compton, California, down in Southern Cal. I raised there my entire life, and I think a little bit of that stayed with me. And but I have an A-type personality, so I'm not a quitter. I keep doing things. I was in martial arts, and just hanging out, trying to stay off the streets. Well, my parents did a good job of keeping me distracted. Played musical instruments and everything like that. But we ended up shifting to Northern Cal. And from there, I just got to a point where my little brother was right behind me. He's around 4.5 years behind me. And he was like, I'm going in the military. And I was in the middle of junior college. And I was like, well, yeah, I don't know, but are you sure? And then he's like, yeah, I want to do the Coast Guard. I was like, Coast Guard? I was like, no, no, no. And I said, look, if you go in the military, let's go in the Army. And, our dad was in the Army. Our grandfather was in the Army. So I was like, look, let's go in the Army. I'll do it with you. So we signed up, and the whole Ranger thing came about was at the Met station. So we went to the recruiter to be military police. I always wanted to be a police officer my entire life. And we went there for that reason. And then the recruiter's like 5-year commitment at the time, because MEPS, they do the DOD printout and they tell you what you're available for. And I was like, 5 years? I don't think so. So my little brother, he went ahead and did it. And credit to
Oh,
him, He ended up retiring as a sergeant major, by the way.
Oh,
So yeah, he did his thing. But I was like, I don't know about that. So I saw on the wall, I saw the Green Beret, like most people do, and I was like, oh yeah, it looks cool. And what is that? And they're like, well, that's Special Forces, because Green Beret is Special Forces, but you can't do that from civilian. You have to be active. And I said, well, give me something similar to that. So the lady ends up showing me a video, and he shows these guys doing all these really cool things. And I was like, well, that looks cool. Let me do that. And she's like, well, this is where she got me. She ends up telling me she didn't know who I was. So she goes, well, I don't think you can do this because only like 1 out of 1,000 guys can make this. And like my husband, he's a ranger, and I don't think you're going to be able to make that. And I was like, I looked at her and I was like, sign me up. So back then you could do that. You sign up and you still have to go through everything. They'll give you the agreement, but doesn't mean you're going to get there. So
right.
you still got processing station, then you go to basic, then you got AIT, which is advanced infantry, then you go through airborne school, then you go to RIP, which is what we call Ranger Indoctrination Program. And it's like it's kind of like qualification for SEALs. You got to prove yourself for this grueling period of time. And long story short, obviously I made it. So that's how I got there to Rangers. And but my life was pretty, my personality was not going to allow me to quit. So I think that fit the personality to be a Ranger, because the intestinal fortitude and the way we are, our standards are obviously, as you know, very high. I talked about it in one of my books, is that you have military army standards, and then you have the max of the military standard, and then we're like right there, and that pushes it. You have to maintain it. It's not like, oh, you get it, you're in, and then you get to just do whatever. No, you maintain it every day, all the time. So it's and that way, it's a tough thing to try to maintain, even when your body is breaking down and all the jumps, airborne jumps, all the physical fitness. I mean, it's tough.
Yeah, man. That's one thing I gotta say about the Army is the jumping out of the planes, and then I seen a lot of dudes smack the shit out of the ground, man, the deck, just bam, and I'm like,
Oh,
ooh,
oh yeah,
gosh,
oh yeah. I
Yeah,
can tell you concussions.
that's gonna be a rateable rateable energy right there.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. The concussions I have, and me, yeah, it's definitely on my disability ratings. Absolutely, based on that. I have. I don't mean I've lost track of how many jumps I have, but I have the sheet somewhere where it shows all my jumps, but it's a lot, and you're right. Especially like I was in Second Ranger Battalion, and we have this area over there called Yakima, and there's certain time periods where that wind is just blowing, and we're jumping
Right.
out of the C-130 or whatever, and we end up catching that wind, and then you see the guys being dragged across the field, and then that particular landing zone has a lot of rocks and
Oh
big
no.
boulders.
Oh,
So we would land, and let me tell you, I know personally, I can't talk for my brothers, but man, I've hit quite a few of those. Thankfully, we have our K pods, but
right.
whoo, let me tell you, I've had my share.
It knocked the wind out of you, I'm sure, real good.
Oh, and we've had situations where people had their legs broken.
Oh yeah.
I know we had a story of one of our sergeant major at one point. He lost the wind in his chute because we had a private who didn't. I
Oh
guess he
no.
didn't. The
Private.
procedures of jumping out of a parachute is supposed to look, and
Yeah.
apparently he didn't look and see the sergeant major, and he went ahead and cut under him and ended up taking his wind, and so the sergeant major's chute collapsed. So luckily, that's why we have reserve. Everything's okay, but these things happen, and it's hard to predict what's going to happen. Going from the moment of leaving the plane, had guys break their arms, to the point of landing. So just practicing is risky. So can you imagine jumping into Panama when you got tracers going? These things happen.
Yeah, like, oh well, there's wind gust here. Well, you
Yeah.
gotta jump. Like there's no ideal situation for that. No, not so whatsoever.
Yeah.
Now, uh, there's guys that get hung up in trees and stuff all the time too. I
Yeah,
see I see that as well. Like, so you guys got to
yeah.
cut yourself loose and stuff. I mean,
Well, not even parachute. We've had and I actually have a friend who went to basic with me. We went all the way up, but he went to first bat and first, third. I think he went to first bat, and I went to second. But he came all the way up. But he's now crippled, total crippled,
mm,
because he actually did an air assault. We were doing air assault practice. So what happened was a pilot error. The pilot is night training. So the pilot's got on his nods, night vision, and he's above. I guess he miscalculated. So what happens when you're doing air assault? I'm not sure if you ever did that training it, but when you drop the rope, we have a Kim light on the end of it. So one of the ways we know that it's hit the ground is when we see the Kim light break. Basically, you see the rope fold and that sort of thing. So it's kind of an indication to know, okay, it's on the ground. Well, apparently that was on top of the trees. So in Georgia, they have all these really tall pine trees or whatever type of trees. And so they were doing that. So again, I think the pilot must have miscalculated because, again, they're doing night training. So there must have been something where I guess they're trying to practice without seeing and using instruments. I believe that had to be it, because how he not know his altitude is beyond me. But they dropped the rope. They think it's hit the ground. Well, it turns out they were above trees. And so when the guys are sliding down, they're sliding down on top of, 30, 40-foot trees. So the guys are basically falling on the tree through the breaks of the branches, and they're breaking their backs. And you also, when you do air assault, we depending on what your job is, like I was a gunner, you have a 240 golf with 24.2 pound assault rifle weapon on your
yeah,
back.
right,
On your
yeah,
back. So you imagine falling through branches and you have that on strapped to your back and you're falling. So I mean, if you have an M4,
dead
you might,
weight, man.
but yeah, dead weight, the positioning of it, and you're falling through trees. So one of my buddies, he's totally crippled as of now. He didn't even. I mean, this is the moment he got to battalion. So.
Ah, gosh,
Yeah,
damn.
we had, I don't know the count, but it was quite a few, but I believe it was low because somebody figured it out. But these, like, he doesn't have to be out of a parachute. This is out of, a schnook. So it happens. It
Yeah,
happens.
training and exercises, it happens a lot, unfortunately, but we got to get there. You got to train because
Have to.
in
Yeah.
a lot of the training exercises are in better conditions that you would be facing when you're actually going through it. You know
Oh,
what I
yeah.
mean? Because they can't do fucking live rounds, and they can do simulation sounds, but there's the gust of winds and the environment is completely different than where we live. So a lot of our train stations, like, oh yeah, here's Southern California, like, oh, that's
Yeah.
beautiful here. um but back to the story of the sergeant major and the private. That sergeant major go chew that private's ass after that, or I mean,
You know what? I don't even know what happened. I don't know what the story is following that. Just heard about that, because during the training, we're obviously doing, it's a bigger training surrounding
right,
that.
a lot of
So
people, and
we're off doing whatever. So who knows if he got reprimanded, if he got kicked out of battalion. But I will say this: one of the things about Ranger Battalion is, it's so difficult to get there to that point. Clearly, you've proven yourself. You've done so much to be able to get to battalion. I would imagine because he's a private, they looked at it as him being a private. He doesn't, even though you went through airborne school,
right.
there's still, I think they looked at it as, it was a mistake. Obviously, he'll never make it again. And depending on, other factors, PT scores, he a squared away soldier, recommendation from a squad leader, looking at his files, they probably, I'm sure he just kind of got chewed out, probably a lot of front leaning rest positions, which is we're notorious for doing in Ranger Battalion. A lot of probably other duties like CQ and things like that. So I'm sure he got in trouble in some aspect, but I don't think they would kick him out. Mistakes happen, and,
Right.
we've
Yeah.
had others, and probably even worse than that. And again, Sergeant Major was fine, because obviously we have that reserve, and he's trained. He's a Sergeant Major. He's got like 15, 20 years. This is not his first jump. He probably have quadruple amount of jumps that we have. So I'm pretty sure he know how to handle it. So.
And that's just the thing, a lot of you special forces guys, you're training, that's what you do day in, day out. You know what I mean? So, but you guys even know it doesn't matter how many times you do it. There's that one time that could just be the
Yeah,
fucking bad time, right? You know what I mean? Just
absolutely.
like, I don't know if you heard the story about the 2 SEALs that are lost out in sea right now. They were doing a night exercise. Um, a younger SEAL fell because when they try to go board a ship, they have a very small ladder that they work with.
Yeah.
And
Uh-huh.
and and obviously they were in I was just watching some video on this. They're going through 6-foot swells and all this stuff. Well, the top guy, which was the youngest guy, ended up falling, and one of the SEALs tried to grab him on his way down, couldn't catch him all the way. But I guess part of the rule being a SEAL is if one of your guys goes, another one got to go with them, right? And that way there's 2 of them, and their chances are a lot better surviving when they have 2 of them versus by
Right.
themselves. So it just goes to show you training is training, but
Yeah.
live is live, and there is a very big difference there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would imagine that, the second guy, it was instinctful for him to go back
Sure.
in there. We have a rule where we say no man is left behind in the special
100%.
ops arena.
Same
So
with the
even
Marines.
if that wasn't a rule for him to not, leave him, he would have done it anyway. I promise you, because we
Oh yeah.
don't leave him behind, period. But, your comment about the training on the sergeant major, one of the unique things about being in special ops is that they grow up in special ops. We don't typically will have anybody in a leadership role that hasn't been in that arena, in that environment. So like all of my squad leaders, all obviously my platoon sergeant, my first sergeant, they were in this pyramid of among other privates as rangers, and
Work their way up.
basically worked their way up. So
Gosh,
we
those are some
a lot
badass
of,
sons of bees, though. Then,
oh,
man, I
absolutely.
mean,
Well, my
you
first
when you
sergeant.
get to the rank, when you get up in the ranks in the special forces, those guys are some
Absolutely.
bad mamma jammas, man.
Absolutely. Not, and I'm not putting anything down with the officers, but it's not like the
Yeah,
officer status. You go to West Point, you're top of your class, you become a ranger, first lieutenant, CEO, XO actually, and then you become a captain. And then they typically will move off. But if we end up getting like a lieutenant bird, they usually leave and then come back. But on the NCO side, they rise up within and they
which
stay.
makes sense.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
makes sense to keep the force. You got to keep the longevity there. You got to keep the, someone with the know-how. You got to keep that going, in that way that you don't lose the knowledge. Because a lot of times when you rotate out, you start losing knowledge. When you rotate someone out, their knowledge doesn't stay there. So that
Absolutely.
makes sense.
Yeah, my first sergeant was in Grenada. He was a private in Grenada, so he was part of that team that went after those medical students. So can you imagine? He's now my first sergeant, and like, so that everything from Grenada to the present, he was a part of. So I'm like, wow, I was an honor to have him as my first sergeant in Alpha Company. So I learned a lot from him too. He was actually
Well,
my
and
mentor.
chances are that sergeant major has seen a lot of things,
Oh yeah,
because special forces get missions when it's peaceful time as well. We send our special forces all throughout the world.
yeah,
People don't know it, obviously,
exactly,
but special forces is a 365 job. You
exactly.
never know when you're going to get that call, and like you said, you're in, you're out. You go in, you get your job done. But there's
That's true.
missions all the time,
Absolutely.
whether people know it or not.
And they usually don't.
Right.
They only know the things that's on the news and CNN and all that. But we've had, I can't tell you how many times we've got a called an alert, jumped on a plane. Not all the time did we do anything, Sometimes
Right.
we would
Sure. It was
go
just
up,
being on call, right?
get
Yeah.
called, and we would either go back home. But we've had many incidences, and you know it happens. It happens, and that's exactly it. And luckily, we have 3 battalions. So our 3 battalion, we do rotation. So first, second, and third, we basically do a rotation where one's on garrison, where we get a month off. We can do whatever we want, and then we have one that's obviously ready for deployment, and then we have one battalion that's back home, basically doing training or whatever, and we rotate between the three. So it's actually a perk by being in special ops, because not only we get all the cool toys, but we get this month off that's not even charged to us, where we can just disappear and go wherever. I love that.
Yeah.
Like, work hard, play hard. So
Right. No, yeah, that's I know in the military, that's gotta be something like a big thing though. Like, hell yeah, bro, we're about to hit that 30 days, like
oh, you better be back in rotation and your in formation when that 30th.
yeah,
Actually,
you better in 3 weeks you're just sitting there eating cocoa, and just Twinkies and having a good time.
but
That last week you're like, yeah, I gotta sweat all this off again.
exactly. No, that's so true,
You
because you
start
get back.
shaving yourself again, like, all right.
And you remember back in the day, we could jump on a hop and go anywhere so easily. So you'd be on the other side of the world. Like you'd be in in Asia somewhere, and you're like, well, I got 4 days to get back. And you're trying to get on a hop to get back home because you're in Japan and you got to be back in Washington. So hey, but we had guys who got, you get written up. You usually just getting written up. You find yourself doing CQ duty for like a month, but as long as you show up, they usually give you this 12-hour grace period where you don't get AWOL. But you hit 24, but especially at Ranger Battalion, they'll give you a little bit of slack, because if you call somebody and let somebody know, it's all good. Still
You get
going
a
to get,
grace. Yeah, you get a little bit of
yeah.
yeah,
Battalion's a little different than regular Army. We have a lot of special rules, and we're a little.
in-house rules type stuff. Yeah. And that's those are usually the cohesive units too, that handle their business inside their house
Yeah.
and don't air out the laundry, and then the battalion, everybody starts getting involved with the platoons and all the sections, and then it gets a little bit more hard. But that's respectful. Now, special forces, bro, that is grueling training. That is you got to have a different mindset. And you got to be able to push yourself when you think you can't do it anymore. So,
Mhm.
what was your biggest challenge being a special force?
So interesting enough, it was actually okay. Well, your question was specifically my challenge in the Rangers, but I want to kind of give you a little story even before I got there,
Absolutely. Yep.
because I was in a motorcycle accident um, while I was waiting to deploy. So I
Oh, no
had
shit.
signed up. I've already quit my job, gave my notice, and I'm waiting. I have my date to go out to do processing. So I'm already ready to go. Like I think I had gave myself a month, so I can just relax and play or whatever. And I had a 990 Honda CBR, and it was getting off work late, and I hit black ice. It was cold up in Sacramento area. I hit black ice, got into an accident in the hospital, bruised. Very luckily, I didn't. Well, one, I didn't die, but more importantly, I didn't break anything. But I had a severe bruised tailbone. So I was bedridden for about 2.5 weeks ish or something like that. So basically, what I'm saying is that actually, I'm sorry, this is right before my medical exam. Right before my medical exam. So I'm in my medical exam, and they're telling me to do the things that we have to do to show we're physically capable of being in the military. That's what it was, because I had it already.
MEPS, like MEPS is a MEPS. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. That's what it was. It was right before MEPS, and I remember having to touch my toes and all that. I was in excruciating pain because I only just had the accident maybe 2 weeks ago. But I already knew I was leaving. I'd already gotten everything together. So, which was stupid. Should have waited till you actually had the agreement in your hand. But yeah, so my point is, as I get into so now I get through that. I barely make it through processing, the little 2 to 3 day where they cut your hair and you got to do the minimum to go to your unit. So I'm in basic. I'm fat. I mean, I am chubby. I'm out of weight because I just spent the last month and a half pretty much in the bedridden, couldn't do anything, and I put on some weight. So I'm coming to infantry unit because you start up in the infantry unit. You're not the Rangers. You haven't proven yourself yet. You're learning infantry basic, and I am there overweight, out of shape, and basically just now to the point where I can do anything because my tailbone's now better. But I'm like no condition. So when we're doing PT, I'm walking. I can barely. I mean, I'm out of shape. I can't stress that enough. So to make the long story short, and I actually put this in my first book, I think, where I said how this one sergeant first class Heilig, I'll never forget his name. He told me because he told me, don't walk, just jog. So as I'm jogging, just to not, he said, don't ever quit. You like, basically, if you quit, it only makes it easier. So the jog, most people will jog and then they'll walk. Don't stop jogging. So the long story short, the jogging got faster and faster. So I ended up graduating with a PT award because I ended up picking it up because I never stopped to walk. I just kept jogging, but the jogging got faster, faster, faster. And also self-discipline, not eating, cake and junk and chow and all that. But that was the hardest thing and that's what actually was the foundation to my success in the Rangers, because I never allow myself to slow down, never allow myself to quit. I always look to my flanks, my left and right, and if my brothers could do it, I know I could do it better. So I always use that as the reason of how I push myself. So to answer your question in the Rangers, the hardest thing, honestly, was just surviving as a Ranger. Now, I don't want to get into any racial things because I was one of the few black men in this unit that had a predominantly white culture, guys who never even seen a black guy, guys who came from parts of our country where they had Confederate flags and all that. Yeah, I was definitely around that. But the thing is, once we went out into the field, once we actually was on an airplane going somewhere, that didn't matter anymore. But there was definitely some challenges back in garrison at the barracks. Definitely challenges there. Definitely, this is before the big 2020 uh, thing where they talked about hazing and all that before that. So I mean that happened regularly. That was a norm for us with privates to come in. You got hazed. That was absolutely every day, all the time. You would get hazed, and that happened until you became a specialist, what we call a Spec 4 or Spec 4 Mafia if you have your tab. So that happened regularly. Like, so you're talking 2.5, 3 years until I got to go to Ranger school and to be able to prove myself. I was hazed. So, and being the man of my skin color, I brought more attention to myself. And you had certain individuals who wanted to get you out of there. But that challenge only made me so much stronger and better. Whereas when I did get to the point of proving myself, such as in an incident in Panama where somebody was about to get stabbed when we were at this particular location, and I was able to intervene and save this person's life, or other situations where I've been able to demonstrate the endurance, and so I mean these things have come full circle to where I actually feel like those moments where they made me stay in a front leaning rest till my arms were wobbly and I fell and hit my nose, on the ground or things of that nature, I was able to do other things with that, that type of, I want to say training, but it's probably, I don't know if it's quite called training.
Nah, I think in all branches of service, it's especially when you're the boots, the boot when you come
Yeah.
into the unit and you're the boot. hazing, getting messed with, getting sent to go ask the NCOs questions that are the dumbest questions in the world that you don't even know. You
Yeah,
know, I mean, and then
yeah,
that guy, you get your ass chewed by the staff
yeah.
NCO or something for asking the dumbest question that you don't know that's a dumb question, though.
No, you
You
didn't
know,
know. They tell you to go ask, and then you go in there and ask, about, something, and you
yeah,
think you ask something intelligent.
hey, go ask Staff Sergeant for the ID 10T form, which is, if you spell that out, it means idiot. You know,
Yeah,
so those
yeah.
kind of
Oh,
things.
that
We're like,
and then at battalion, what happens is they'll make you do push-ups first for coming in there. Then they make you do push-ups because you asked the questions,
yeah,
and then they'll make you, and then, they just find ways to just keep you in physical shape. So I want to wrap that up by saying that although there's a lot of hazing and all the push-ups and all that, but it was designed to make you stronger, and that's what I meant by
100%.
the things I was able to achieve. When I went to PLDC, which is where you become a sergeant at the school, primary leadership development course, I smoked everybody when it came to for the physical fitness. I got a physical fitness award because, again, I walked in there. Obviously, I'm a ranger, so I had a huge advantage. But physically, I'm older than most. I didn't mention I went in the military. I was 20, so I wasn't a 17, 18-year-old or even 19. I was already 20. So by the time I went to PLDC, I was older than most. But physically wise, I was running circles around them and doing push-ups more than so credit to all the Rangers who made me do push-ups, and I say all because it's the entire um, battalion. It's not the company. So we're in an isolated area in Fort Lewis where we have all the different companies, and you're walking. If you're a private and there's somebody who wants to make you do push-ups, they can make you do push-ups. It doesn't matter. It's not just your squad leader. It's not just your company. It's anybody.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to probably get in a little trouble for saying this, but I think there is a healthy way of hazing, and I think that there is a proper way of hazing. And I think hazing is to some extent good, but where it goes bad is people take it to a different level. They start
Right.
having people degrade themselves, things of those kind of nature, and then they're taking it to a different level.
Correct.
That's with everything in the world. We don't know how to just kind of be even keel with it. We got to go extra.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why they don't have hazing anymore, or they try to prevent it, is because these fools want to take it to a level that's, like the degrading and stuff, and making, people do things that are just sick and wrong, you know, besides sitting there making them hold, like, booger finger thumb something that's
Yeah.
different, or sitting on the imaginary chair, or, things of that nature. Not sitting there making them do things that are so degrading and stupid. That's why I think hazing gets frowned upon, is because there's those folks that want to take it to a whole different level.
Absolutely. No, the things I went through at battalion, most of it was definitely, designed to make you stronger, better, physically fit. I mean, absolutely. Now, there are other stories that I won't reveal that went above that, and
Sure.
for other reasons. But, those guys in Iraq that were, the shown on the news and we heard about that ended up getting prosecuted, those knuckleheads went way above what they were supposed to do. They crossed the
Yeah,
line.
degrading people. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was getting sick, and that's the level of where it's not funny anymore.
Yeah.
When you're taking it to a different, because at the bottom line, when we're hazing each other, we're brothers and sisters. We're
Right. Right.
we're a family. So
Right.
you want to do it to a level where you're going to make them tough. You're not going to make them hate the group.
Right.
Because gosh damn, you never know when you're going to need them on the left or the right, and you don't want to surely as hell take a friendly fire. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Exactly.
When the shit hits the fan.
He's like, the guy who steps to the left, and it's like, hey, him. But hey, and it's in all, it's all around us. I mean, we don't hear about it, but I know you have athletes do it. The new
Yeah.
rookies come on. I mean, basketball players. I mean, we hear about it all the time. Go get. I forgot who it was. Talked
It's
about
like a
somebody.
welcoming to the family kind
Yeah.
of thing, though, and you got to realize, see, the thing is I think that, it's kind of being tested by the pack. they want to know that, for one, you can be trusted. Two, you're one of us, and I think that there's a lot of tests and that goes along with hazing, and it's a test to see how they react to it,
Absolutely.
but and then, and the most cohesive units are the ones that do it in a healthy way. There's
Ah,
hazing, but they do it healthy. There is some there is a level of jokesters going on too, though. I
yeah,
mean,
a
where
lot of,
it get, it probably is like, oh, that was funny at the time, but you look back at it like, maybe it wasn't that funny.
yeah, definitely have a
you know?
lot of those stories. A lot of
Oh
stories.
yeah, definitely. I do too. I can't tell you, in the Marine Corps, the level of hazing is it's there. I mean, and like I said, though, it it's like you do it with your brother. If anybody else did that to one of ours, it would be a problem, and everybody would be all over him. But it's like, we kind of could do it to each other. But we're gonna go ahead and kind of switch it up now, and kind of talk more into like what you got yourself into after you got out of the military, and where you're going out with it all today, and talk about all the education and all the good stuff you got going on.
So I'll never forget the day I got off the plane. But like most veterans, there's a portion of you that's different, angry. I was going through that very bad. I mean, I was angry at everything I saw. People thought they were taking their lives for granted, and I didn't even think that it was something that was a problem. It was just that is how I felt. Um, but again, there's the part of me that still had a purpose, which is, get my education, use my GI Bill, and continue to move forward. I was able to, get married, not thinking anything, just trying to go through life. But there was as years progressed, and this is because I reflect, not because I knew it at the time. I noticed that things were different. Things of what I was doing was different. Friends that I had was not there anymore. Interrelations with family members different. How I perceived things was different. Everything was. Then there was a period of time where then my relationship, my marriage, my parenting skills, that all started falling apart. There was a moment of reflection when I'm just on the cuff of divorce where I felt like, well, what do I need to do to protect the marriage, the last moment? And I go through, I reach out to VA, I reach out to our personal private medical care to try to get them to see what's going on. And I realized one of the classes, an interpersonal class, it was with civilians. I was completely against it, but I was desperate. And that's when I realized something was not quite right. And then I remember calling one of the assignments was to call a relative, because I had a lot of blockage, and call a relative and get some information. And I started realizing something was not right. Now, remember, I'm an academic. You mentioned that earlier. So for me, it was always trying to understand. And then at that time, VA was crap. You remember that when, back in the, before the undersecretary was terminated, we had a lousy VA system. So I was out there like most vets. They were just kind of out there figuring things out. Um, Over time, luckily I never quite gave up on school, so I continued to work. I continued to go to school, but work was a challenge. So I was finding myself in and out of jobs. Now, thankfully, we have this thing that started becoming really popular, which is consulting. So hiding under the coverage of the term consulting, I was able to move around because I wasn't able to maintain a regular job. It was weird. I just could not sustain working at a place for a long period of time. So but it didn't, if you look at my resume, it looked pretty impressive because I was here and then I was there and I was promoting, and I always promoted for some reason. But I was able to always give this impression that I was, bringing in, obviously I'm going to perform, which I would. I'm a great employee, but the interpersonal stuff was a problem. So I could only last so long. And that again was something that I started picking up on. And it took a while. We're talking years. We're talking a decade actually, still trying to figure this out, because I still was kind of thinking, oh, I'm okay, it's not me. Again, still having struggles with relationships, still noticing struggles with my kids, and just out there floundering. But I maintained school. Weird, maintained schooling. Um, so basically, I ended up going in tech. I'm project manager. I'm doing big things. I'm working for big companies. I'm the consultant. I'm doing, making a ton of money. But again, just personal life was just not there and crap. And it got to the point where even the professional side started crumbling. They started catching up. That's when luckily VA shifted and I was able to get help. So there was a period of time where I call it the black period of time in my life, where literally where I was homeless because I had a fallout with my ex. At that point, divorce was imminent. Fallout with parents who usually you can go to and it's your last resort. Couldn't stay there. I mean, literally everything was just a mess. Even my best buddy, my best friend, even he wasn't there for me. Even he kind of just had to take some step away. I look back and it's just amazing how I was living out of my Ford Explorer. Thankfully, it was paid off because I had no money, and at the time I was only 20%. I didn't know you could, get more back then. Again, VA was crap. And there was I don't think I knew of VSO. I didn't know about it. So I was only getting 20%. So it's like $100 and something. I used that to basically maintain gas and buy Subway $5 sandwiches. That was how I survived. But the grace of God, I was still a faculty member teaching at University of Phoenix. And back then they had satellite schools everywhere. And the one I particularly, you can go to anyone when you're a teacher, but I was actually known at this particular one that was in a business building that had showers and stuff. So I would basically shower, clean up there, go into the faculty office and get on the computer, and I would just kick out resumes all day long. And that's all I did, and do my homework. I was still getting my PhD at the time. So in fact, it's amazing. It's still to this day, I have no idea how I was able to get from Sacramento to Phoenix to do my residency. Like, I parked on top of the school university parking lot and slept. My fellow students all had hotels and all of that. I was in the SUV on the top floor, parked, sleeping in there. Got out, did residency, did all my stuff, did everything I was supposed to do. They had no idea. Go back to my car, and I slept. The last day, somebody mentioned something about a hotel having a thing, and I was able to sleep in an actual bed on the day before our last day, and then able to get back to Sacramento. To this day, I love my SUV because it kept me from being literally on the street or having to drop out of school. But I never dropped out of school. I was able to finish. And somewhere in there, I was able to get a really nice job as a consultant, where they put me up in a hotel. It was funny because when the headhunter called me, he actually asked me, "Oh, we can't find anybody for this job. It's way out in the middle of I forgot where this company was, but it's way out in the middle somewhere, and nobody wants to go there. But we'll put you in a hotel. We will get you a rental car." I was like, sign me up, because that's exactly what I needed. And I ended up doing that job where I had a hotel, had a rental car, had everything, and I was making a buttload of money, and I didn't have to spend it because they paid for everything. So I ended up having this big savings, and it was able to get me back on my feet and then get reacclimated. And then that's when I decided I'm going to start helping others at that moment, because I realized that God was there for me, and where I could have literally went in a whole nother direction. So that point, knowing what I was going through, I made it a point to understand what happened, because my entire life, I was an A student, martial arts, an athlete, this, that, the other. And then I go in the military and I come out and everything goes downhill. But yet I'm somehow able to sustain the motivation to go to school. And just to kind of give you an insight, because I do know now, because I figured it out, is that going to school was a personal thing. That was just me. I didn't have to deal with anybody else. I got to go to school. It was done online, my choice, my effort. When it's work related, when you're dealing with other people, the interpersonal stuff, that makes it a challenge. That's when things change. That when makes it harder. So yes, I could sustain going to school because it's me. I don't have to, because you know how we isolate ourselves. PTSD, anxiety, all these things is basically where they're individual efforts, but because you don't want to be around all this other stuff. And that's why working was hard. But going to school, I could do that. And that's why I was able to continue. So the schooling allowed me to continue to at least find work, therefore funding. And then at some point, when I ended up getting my 100%, I think that was when I hung it up. When I realized it was with VA collaboration. It was, I can't do this anymore. There was many incidences where things could have gone bad at the job I was at. My ability to function and to do certain things just wasn't there. So it was best to pursue things on my own through my therapist, myself, discussions. It was like, Aaron, you have enough pedigree, education, etc. You can do things on your own. And I already had been volunteering on all these different veteran committees. So I knew the direction I wanted to go. It's just a matter of figuring it what it is. And again, one of the things about getting a PhD is that it's all about research. And that's been my thing. And I've been very good at it. And if you listen to my previous podcast, it talks about how I researched this and researched that and come up with this. My podcast that I used to do on Field Talk and Dr. Bryant Speaks, these things are all mentioning all the research, and that's the data and the things that I bring about is all of that because I'm good at it. So I continue to do that to become a developmental coach and a mental health advisor because I understand that better than anybody among all my vets, all my brothers and our sisters, so but I wanted to take it to another level to really understand and how we can kind of somehow manage it. That is what the key is managing it. You're not getting rid of it, so unless you're getting a brain transplant. So how do we manage it? And how do we do that effectively? Because based on my path, I first-handedly lost family and jobs, etc., friends, etc. So there was some things that we need to figure out, and that's what been my passion, and that's where the whole coaching things come from. That's why I wrote the first book, and then I wrote the second book. So it was really important for me to be somebody that people can contact and be able to talk to because I do get it.
Absolutely. You could tell where your special forces paid off for you is there's a time you could have quit. There was definitely a time when you could have just said, man, I can't take this shit. Everything's just too hard. I don't want to do this no more, but you kept persevering, bro, and you kept pushing through it, and I hope that anybody that's watching this can see that if you continue to work towards something that you really want, if you want it bad enough and don't give up, no matter what's going on around you, you can get it done. And, Dr. Aaron Bryant is a prime example of it. I mean, he could have quit when he was out living on the street, basically could have just said, I'm done. This is just too much for me. Going to school is just another thing I can't, and then trying to work and trying to, stay above water, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's amazing, bro. Like, some of the things that, humans do and some of us to give up on ourselves,
We have
everybody has it in you. Everybody has it in you. You just got to be able to pull it out and find it in yourself. But every single buddy has it. Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so that's just the thing. I love watching people that could have, your story could have been different. Your story could have been completely different, man.
In so many ways.
You could have been sitting there in your sorrow and feeling bad for yourself, victimizing yourself, and kept playing that role. But you decided, no, that's not going to be the end of your story. There's still chapters to be going. That's not the end of your story. And I can only imagine, man, that your story still is going to keep going. You don't seem like one that's going to stop the chapter until life's, literally the casket's shutting. You know what I mean? Like there's into your book.
Well,
But
Brian, here's the interesting thing. And I'm afraid to say this because I don't want to scare people, but it's interesting because I'm finding this out right now. The more I have established, to be honest, is harder it's becoming. And I think it's because of expectations. So I'll give
sure.
you an example. Because when I worked at the hospital, I'm making all this money. I have this house, cars, blah, blah, blah. And when you lose it and you realize like this could have been me, the coulda, wouldas, and it weighs more on me. When I start, like right now, I'm a partner with this healthcare consulting firm. I got the book, da 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 da, and I'm juggling these things. And then there's moments where I'm like, I can't do this anymore. And it's like I have all of these responsibilities, and then you feel that anxiety closing in. So these are the things that are real. However, and I actually say this towards the end of my book that you have, the mental health book, it is the purpose of why I feel I'm still here is why I keep pushing. Because at this point, I'm starting to believe it's not just me. I'm believing that it's people I'm interacting with, your listeners, your viewers, anything I may say that might help somebody, client, patient, anybody that I'm interacting with. If I'm not here, then how can I actually communicate with them? So that has been actually an inspiration for me to keep going, which again, like you said earlier, doing your podcast, like I started my podcast, we do that because we feel we're not only helping others, we're helping ourselves. And that is what keeps me going. But it's interesting how it's become harder, but I'm trying to find the strength and maintain the momentum. But when I realize that I go down, when I realize that I'm going through something, I find that I've actually fallen pretty hard. And it's only that much more difficult to get back up, which is, again, why I had to go to certain extremes to give myself, and I call it balance. And I'm talking about, it's in the book, by the way, but you'll see in the book, you're going to laugh because you're going to go, wow, he really went like, this is what you do to give yourself, because I had to figure out what is it that I can do for me, because you remember my book is about taking control. So what can I do for me? And unfortunately, I tried so many things. I had to, it wasn't until this particular thing ended up being that is what gives me the strength. So I have to do that regularly to give myself that motivation. And you'll see it in the book, and I don't want to give too much away for those who are going to get it, but it's everybody's going to be different. Everybody's going to seek what it is they need, and it could be something small and minor. It could be something great, but whatever it is, find it, because that's going to be important for you to have that to help you maintain whatever it is that's necessary to keep going, because it is hard. It gets hard.
Yeah, you sent me a copy of the book, and I've gotten to read about halfway through it. I will say, right off rip, it resonated with me right away. Easy read. So for all you Marines out there, it's a good read. It is for us Marines, potato head style. He's got some boxes. He got some. It makes the reading good, and he throws some comedy kind of in there a little bit as well. So it's a good. It's very relatable. If you're a veteran, even you deployed, you went through a lot of things. Here's the thing: he's special forces, out of supply, but there's a lot of things that just being in the combat zone that are relatable, and we kind of come back and we have very similar experiences to certain
Yeah,
triggers that
right.
you talk about. We have a lot of the same triggers, and when I read that, it was like, man, it just you know him and I have so much relatable. How many other people are out there just like us? You
Exactly.
know, And as we talk to each other, and that's the hard part about it, when we're in the military together, we're all together in a cohesive unit. Wherever we go somewhere, we always got several with us. Even if we get temporary assigned duties, we're still with a whole bunch of Marines or whoever you're with. And then when you get out, you have to go home and you have to deal with people that aren't like you anymore,
Yeah. Yep.
and don't understand kind of what you're going through. And so we do get ourselves set in this way. But when I started kind of getting back into podcast world, because I had removed myself from the veteran community for a while and just isolated myself, lost a lot of relationships with friends, family, all the things. Now, I wish I would have known a lot more back in my early 20s, instead of learning it in my 40s,
Yeah.
and how many things I could have saved that during that 20-year gap of me just not really thinking or realizing, gosh, damn, I might have the issues here. You know what I mean? And there's just things that I had to work through.
Yeah.
But, why I'm kind of saying this, and I'm long-winded as I usually am, um, is that reading this book can help you realize a lot of things, and you're not alone. And you can start to say, gosh, dang, there's others like this. And we all may not heal the same. We all may, for something that works for someone may not work for the next person. But the great thing about it is here's another method, here's another way, here's another thing for your toolbox to help
Exactly.
you process and get through some of these triggers and things that I promise you, if you read his book and you deployed, you got the same issues. You know what I mean? And um, so it's just another way, and maybe what you've done hasn't worked for you yet. And
Exactly.
so you just need to find that thing that's going to work for you, and find a place that's going to make you feel comfortable to where you can get to that level and free up that mindset, because
Exactly.
we get in a bad mindset at times. So
Yeah, no, you actually, I don't know if you said that because you read it in the book or you said it yourself, but I use the term toolbox because the more resources you have, the better. Absolutely, clearing that head is a necessity. The book, the mental health book, is basically giving tools and techniques, giving them ideas of options, giving them guidance. There's everybody's different.
sure.
Everybody, I talked about the brain. There's a specific area in the book where I joke a little bit, and I go into this whole thing about neurology, and and I purposely do that because I just wanted to get this medical perception of how complex the brain is, and that's exactly what it is. So you put on layers of mental issues. Come on, it's hard to identify what is the right and wrong and how to fix it and how to no, but we can try to take control, and take control back is the basis of this book. I want the readers and those who are struggling for, and you mentioned how it's an easy read, from 12 years up and older. It's junior high, middle school, high school can read this, so that way, because they're probably going through something themselves. So giving them some ideas of how to take control, how to pace themselves, leveraging some of the techniques that I'm giving, and also more importantly, figuring out ways to allow yourself to just, get back to balance. I use that word so many times. I have other key words that I use when I'm actually working with people, on the coaching side. But these words are good words because, similar to triggers, these words are things that gives them something to remember, so that way they understand what they need to do. When you're getting angry and you're starting to get to a point where you're going to boil over, what should I do? And you'll remember the words that Dr. Bryant said, and it helps you, take it to a lower level if that's what you need. So the book gives you that perspective, but more importantly, call me, contact me, let me know. I mean, my website is my name straight across, and just reach out to me and I'll, help you figure out some other things. But I hope the book really does give people some perspective.
You said something about balance. I
Mhm.
think as Americans, that's one of the biggest struggles in our society and in our culture is finding balance. You
Yeah.
know, we tend to go really hard on something. It's either you get married to your job, you have, you know, something you're so into, you know, or like eating too, you know. We just love it. So we want seconds or thirds, you know what I mean? Even though the first plate was probably good enough, but it was just so damn good. We got to have more. I mean, I'm one of them, you know what I mean? Um, but that's why we're unhealthy. That's why we have a lot of extra stresses in our life and all those things, is because we're not finding that balance in life. You know, you're either overeating, under eating, you're getting married to your job, so other relationships are, you know, starting to struggle. Finding that balance is huge into having a more of a calm life, I would say. You know, because if you can't find balance, you're going to be overly stressed about something going on, or, you know, things
Right.
that, and so a lot of things start to suffer when you get out of balance as well, right? You go really hard on something, then that thing starts to suffer. Then you put so much pressure on this, then that goes back, you know. So balance is very, that's a very big key word.
Well, that's why I titled the book Mental Balance. I mean, because it's absolutely the foundation of what I'm trying to get across. Um, searching for tranquility. The average person, I talk about this in the book, the average person, they go to work, they do things, and then they have their periods of time where they go on vacation. Now, why are they going on vacation? Well, they worked, did all that stuff, and then now they want to kind of relax and get their brain and relax and all that. But if you're somebody who's traumatic, who's going through different types of challenges mentally, that's not something you can plan. You can't do okay, let's do this. And now we're going to book our cruise in about 6 months. We're going to book our flight to Greece in about 5 months. No, that doesn't work. We're on a different, we're operating a little differently. So to be able to establish balance, that's again, going back to the book, I'm giving you some tools and techniques to think about. And more importantly, figure it out. What you need? And I can't tell you that. I can help you figure it out. I can help you, just like my therapist did about 3 years ago. Well, she tried. I put that in the book. She tried. She tried to give me some.
Yeah.
She told me to get up in the morning. Well, this was the greatest advice she said was make sure you get up in the morning, have a plan. But then she follows it with take a walk. Well, and I joke about that. One of the jokes in the book is like, well, I try, but that doesn't work because my feet, my ankles, my knees, I can't really go very far, so I can't find much.
Oh, we lost him. He'll be right back here. He is. Yep, there you go.
Yeah, so I can't go very far, so that doesn't really quite help. But there's other things you can figure out, and it's important for that person to understand, so because again, the way the brain works, when you're having challenges, you're having issues, you're reacting to things, you're reacting to people. We have to learn how to, I'm going to say it again, balance, but more importantly, being able to take that control back, being able to figure out how to manage it. Because you don't want to be like me when you're at work and the boss is, I honestly to this day don't know what she was saying. I just remember I was sitting at my desk and she's like saying something, and whatever it was, it caused me to slam my fist down on the desk. I'm in the middle of work, like my coworkers are everywhere, and I'm a supervisor. She's a manager, and and I just slammed my hand down, and she beeline for her office and closed herself and then locked herself in the office. And I don't really remember, but I know I left. I guess I gathered my things, I guess, and I left. Now at the time, my wife at the time, she worked in HR, so she advised me on a few things because technically I abandoned work, like I left work. So never went back to that job. I was a little.
AWOL. Nope. We lost him. What?
It didn't reflect as a termination, but something in HR allowed me to, not get, a negative thing on my record. But to this day, I don't know what happened. I don't know why, but clearly it's something, this is all post-military. So clearly she did something, said something that caused me to react that way. And I'm not well, are we able to say we're not violent people when we actually did certain things? I never thought of that.
Maybe not anymore,
So I'm not a violent person. But I mean, that moment, this woman was fearful of her life at that moment. So,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, so there's obviously, again, this is all before I realized who I am, who I was, because I didn't know anything about the things I was going through. And that's a lot of our vets don't realize that. A lot of them are
No.
walking
Right.
around and they're not even aware. They don't even know. And I was the same way for I probably need to do the math, but I mean, I got out at certain, at least a decade or so before I realized anything, any kind of inkling. So, yeah.
Yeah, man. It it does. I agree. It took me a while too, and I didn't even know some of the things I was experiencing. Oh, that's PTSD. I honestly had no clue what the hell PTSD was.
Yeah, right. Still
Yeah, I mean,
don't.
I mean, so
We
it's
still
like,
figuring that out.
right, and so I mean, I had no clue what to expect or anything when I got out, and when things were going down, I would just be like, whatever, just kind of play it off because they were things I never experienced before. My body never felt weird, like shooting pains down all the way down to my toes and through my fingers and all the weird, body functions that happen and stuff when you kind of have adrenaline and stuff rushing through your body.
Yeah.
Um, but now let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about how we can kind of get in touch with you, check you out. We do have your website on here. We're gonna go ahead and bring it up, and this is,
So,
if
yeah,
you want to talk a little bit about it.
so my pursuit of helping others started where I was basically involved with in a lot of different veterans, etc. And it got to the point where I had to formalize everything because I had to basically prioritize. So I got certified in various coaching certifications about 3 years ago, even though I've been doing volunteering and helping others for at least 5 or so years. So now it's more formal with the credentials behind me, in addition to actually getting my MD. But I only use that when I volunteer out of country. I go to one of the places that I go for tranquility is Mexico. So when I'm there, I do teaching and volunteering, and I work in the communities there. I don't do it here in the States. Here, I mostly want to provide the coaching aspect for people who are having various issues. Now, the interesting thing is you notice it says developmental coach and not life coach and some of the others. And that's because developmental coaches come from a more of a global perspective. We want to ensure that everything surrounding you is in operation to achieve what you need. I do categorize professional, career, interpersonal, and mental. But the truth of the matter is that when you call me, I'm going to basically sum it up and give you all the tools. If you're looking to say, oh, I want to get a promotion, well, that's a life coach. He'll help you focus on that particular goal. Where I'm going to basically ensure that you're looking at, performance in all various areas. Because if you're looking to get promoted, why is it you didn't already get promoted and what held you back from the get-go? I'm looking at a lot of different perspectives when as a developmental coach. So, and again, I have worked in Fortune 500s. I worked in Fortune 50s. Actually, I worked in Fortune 25. So my background, my MBA is actually an executive MBA. So it's not that I'm just saying, oh, I'm a coach and I'm just, trying to say that I can help you with work or family and all that. But I actually have the background and experience. I have the divorces. I understand interpersonal relationships, marriage, parenting. I understand the corporate world, been a consultant for over a decade or so. I'm currently an executive with a healthcare consulting firm. Our clients are 3 million and above. I am the COO. So, I mean, I still have an operating independently and on my own and doing well. But in the same time, I want to help others that are struggling, because I don't want those individuals to go through the roller coaster that I did. So if they contact me now at my name, draaronpbryant.com, you'll get to this website here. It'll give you a snippet of who I am and relating to the services I provide. But more importantly, you can contact me. There's a chat box, there's an email. I think I might even put my WhatsApp on there and be able to reach out to me directly. Don't have staff, don't have all these individuals in front of me. You're going to get me, and we're going to set something up, and we're going to figure it out, what it is that you're looking for, what you're struggling with. If you're a veteran and you just don't want to call the crisis line, you can contact me. I'm actually doing that as we speak. I'm going to put a crisis option on there, so that way I have any vets who need a 15-minute, 30-minute chat. I want to provide that free of service. So that's something I'm going to be doing very soon. But if you need something long-term, something that can help you, like I said, if you don't want to go through the roller coasters or the challenges that I went through in my life, you want to try to avoid that, and you truly want somebody to provide you some tools and be able to ensure that you don't have yourself going in some direction that you want to avoid, give me a call, please. Contact me, email me. I
Oh,
assure you we can work together.
I had the wrong sheesh, I had the
Website
wrong
up?
thing up. Yes, I did, man.
Yeah, it's there
So
now.
here's the correct one. My fault, guys. DrAaronBryant.com. My gosh.
Right.
Yep, I forgot to delete the other one before I started. All right. So but that's definitely how you check out that website. And man, you're doing some great things out there,
Thank you.
for
I appreciate
you
it.
know for yourself as well, and that's important. A lot of people out there don't invest in themselves. We like to invest in others,
Yeah.
and sometimes if we could put some of that investment into ourselves, there's so much great things that we can do,
Yeah,
and
exactly. And that's exactly what I did for myself to be able to get to this point. And I'm trying to get other people to do the same thing, because like you said earlier, didn't quit, continue to go to school, and I continue to educate myself in all different realms that I felt was relevant. I wanted to understand what's going on. I wanted to see what I could do, what was necessary for me to help others. And I just kept doing this, and I hope others will be able to do the same. So if I can help them get there, let's work together.
absolutely. And we're going to go ahead and put that one more time. That is Dr. Aaron pbryant.com for anybody that's listening. So it's DrAaronPBRYANT.com.
Yeah.
So Dr. Aaron Bryant, is there any last words or anything you got for us, man? I really appreciate you actually coming on and taking the time to talk to us. Um, I imagine this isn't going to be the end of our friendship. We'll definitely keep in contact, and you're always welcome to come on the show. I know that you're not done yet. You still got
No,
things going on. Sure, there's
no.
more books to come and things like that, because you yourself got a lot of knowledge out there, and be selfish of you not to share it with all of us. So
Yeah, I already have some ideas for some next books. They're already in draft. But what's interesting is that the experiences of the things that I do, the volunteering I do in Mexico, working at the hospitals and the people I interact with, how it reflects on me. That stuff is going to be coming out. But my social media, I'm not really great on social media, but I'm trying to get better, keeping people engaged. And you can see a lot of the things that I do. And I do that not so much because, I don't know why people do it, but I do it because I want other veterans and people like myself who are going through things to kind of see what I'm trying to distract myself with. If you can see that, and if you're following me, you know of my background, you know of me, you can see me on these various platforms and be able to say, okay, that's a good idea. And one of those things is golf. Although I suffer, I suffer every time I finish playing around for 2 to 3 days after. My back is hurting, my feet are hurting, and there's nothing I can do. But I love the game because it gives me that period of time for about 4 hours, 4.5 hours, depending on who I'm playing with, to be able to just be out there with this golf course and nothing else is on my mind, supposedly. So things like that, gives me something to look forward to, some type of passion. So again, follow me on my social medias. It's all the same, Dr. Aaron P. Bryant on all my social media pages, but reach out, just reach out and let me help you figure out what you need. That's all it is.
Well, like I said, man, I appreciate you. Um, you know, the book itself is an easy read. I'm telling you guys, it's something you're gonna want to check out. It is relatable, um, especially if you deployed. But once again, Dr. Aaron P. Bryan, I appreciate you, man. And
Hey, I
if you could
appreciate
just
you giving me a chance to be on the show. Love the show.
absolutely, absolutely. If you could just hold tight, I'll be back there with you in a second. But once again, thanks again, and have a great one, bro.
All right, you too.
All right, friends and family. Well, you know what? That's going to wrap it up for another great episode. Remember, if you're out there, make sure you're out there enjoying your day. Don't let the day get the best out of you. Make sure you're getting the best out of each and every one of your day. And also, make sure you guys go out there. Go check out draaronpbryant.com. He is an awesome dude, great guy to talk to. The book, like I said, it's written for Marines, so anybody can read it. So if I can get through it, you guys can get through it. But anyways, until next time.